also about AI. I was going to move on to Tarek next as well to get his sort of input on this. So there's a growing focus, obviously, on AI, technology, data analytics, etc., in real estate industry. So Tarek, how do you think these tools can support valuers? And what is it that we need to be careful about while using these tools?
So funny enough, my undergrad is, I'm a software engineer, right? And I actually did my master's in AI back in 2000 well, I started my master's in AI and I didn't complete it, and I moved to an MBA instead after 2 years. But basically, it was one of the very first proponents of technology in valuation, especially when I moved my consulting into valuation more, where the money is, I thought. And but I kept my stocks in AI, so that's a good news. So basically, AI is, as Ben just said, it's a tool. It's a dangerous tool. I think it's an enabler. A lot of people are afraid of it. Like I like it when I explain, because I'm also an educator, and when I had teachings at the AUC, I teach valuation, which also I want to continue on answering Ben's question, but I'm going to tackle the AI question first. And people are afraid of AI, right? I would say AI is similar to how people are afraid of machines and electricity back when the economy was 80% run on agriculture, right? People are said, okay, all this electricity and machines are going to come in. We're going to be out of jobs. The economy is going to collapse. What are we going to do? And back then, when the world was only 500 million in population, now we're 8 billion plus in population, and we're doing just fine, right? So I think AI is going to, not 80% of the people who worked in agriculture back then, now is only 2% of the population is working in agriculture, but does not mean that people are going to run out of jobs. But the roles are going to change. I think I teach my children now, forget about English, fundamentals, physics and math and chemistry and all that is great, but what you should also focus on is skills-based economy. What we're going to be seeing in the future is problems that are going to come up that we have no imagination today of what these problems will look like. We can't just imagine them. So the only way to prepare the kids of the future, or the workers of the future, is to give them the competencies, right? The competencies and the skills, and most importantly, the ethics and the repercussions of unfair competition and unfair behaviors and its impact on humanity and on themselves and on their peers and on their reputation, and therefore on their performance, right? So we keep forgetting that the law is not always practiced ethically, right? The law is not, it's not an issue of doing things legally. It's about, you can always do things legally that are unethical, but it's really the ethics and the professional conduct that really matters. And I think this is where the standards come in. Also, coming back to the AI, we're going to be facing a lot of issues when it comes to proprietary ownership, who did the work, where do you get the information from, the credibility of the sources of data. These challenges exist today anyways without AI, or previously existed with AI. Without AI, they're just going to be more exacerbated with AI. It's just, you have the tools now to enable people who didn't have the ability or the competency to do certain things to be doing them easily with AI, but it's just the fundamentals remain that fundamentally you still have to be able to ask the right questions. You need to be able to direct these tools to analyze this in a proper way, in an ethical way, and in the end to serve your client, right? In the end, or the truthfulness of the industry. So sometimes it's against the benefit of your client, but basically you have to serve the truthfulness of this and the trust in this profession. And I think this is where it comes in with the ease of use, right? Tools enable you to run faster. You now have a car that runs at 200 miles an hour versus a horse, that used to run at 2 miles an hour. But it doesn't mean that the destination has changed. It doesn't mean that the journey is more comfortable. It doesn't mean the journey is any shorter. You just have to, there's a lot more complexity to it. So I think AI is not, in my opinion, is not a threat to the industry. I think it may be a threat to the individuals that are not keeping up with these tools, that are not making use. I think it's a threat to companies that are not going to be taking them seriously to evolve their processes and their competencies and their workforce to absorb. And it's also going to be a risk for those companies that want to get rich quick and they want to obfuscate their work with a few pretty presentations without actually looking at the core fundamental need of actually bringing up a truthful valuation. And I think this is a good time as well to continue on the uncertainty question with Ben, because I teach at university. And a lot of people tell me, what do you love about valuation? What do you love about this profession? And I tell them, I love uncertainty. I love it, right? Because uncertainty is where the true metal of the competency that you have shines. When you have uncertainty, you really have to look back. You have to look at what the fundamentals are. What are we doing? We became very comfortable with data coming in, streams of data, AI analysis, giving us sort of, here's how the trend looks like, here's the demand and supply, here's the prices and how they're going. But we keep forgetting that behind that research or behind that data that's coming to us is real research, is fundamental effort. Someone actually collecting that data, making sense of it, statistically analyzing it, removing out the outliers, talking with people on the ground, collecting true sentiment. Because truly what valuation is you're trying to both reflect market sentiment and how the people will behave in the market. Obama once said on when he came out in an interview and said, what do you fear most about American politics? It's like, I fear the fact that the way the country is going now is, or the trend is, we are diverting away from facts. We are a non-facts economy, right? We're not focusing on facts and information and knowledge anymore. And I think our duty as valuers is to always go back to the fundamentals. Substantiation. What is your evidence? What are your sources? Yes, there's a lot of uncertainty, but it doesn't mean that you cannot work in this uncertainty. It doesn't mean that you should not do your job and actually converse with people, get their sentiment, do your statistical analysis, figure out what the outliers are, because no one else out there in this area, in this era of uncertainty, has the facts right, has as much information, as much access to resources as a valuer. So put a lot of value into that. There's a lot of value in experience. There's a lot of value in doing things professionally, right? And then sticking to the standards. The standards is just the language. Is so that when I talk with Ravi, when I talk to Simon, when I say market value, I understand what it means. You understand what it means. It's just that we get to it in a different way. And when you say substantiation, I understand what substantiation is. When you say methodology, we understand what the methodology is. It's just a language. But the fundamental issue here is competency and ethics. How do you actually ensure that those standards, that language, and these processes and methodologies come across? And coming back to Simon, if your sources are not well recorded, if your processes are not well documented, then you run the risk of making huge mistakes. And I don't know, AI, I don't think there's a threat from AI. AI will just make it better. We'll just make it more accurate. We'll just make it faster. The job that I did in 7 days can be done in 1 day. And now that my capacity can now grow as someone who's competent and someone who's ethical, and can expand into areas of work that previously I had no capacity to take on. And that just means that more goodness will spread across areas that no competent people were able to access because of the limited capacity. That's it. That's my opinion.